the woman with fire in her eyes. The sky was dark, filled with smoke and broken stars. Jack, a human soldier, walked alone through the ruins of the alien village. His boots crunched over ashes. The war had ended weeks ago, but the silence still felt dangerous. He held his plasma rifle tight, eyes sharp. Then, he heard something. Not an animal, not wind, a cry, soft, weak, almost like someone was trying not to be heard. He moved closer, slowly. The sound came from behind a shattered wall of what once looked like a home. As he turned the corner, he froze. A woman sat on the ground, her arms wrapped around two small children. Her long silver hair was dirty and tangled. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her face was tired, but her eyes were burning. She didn't flinch when she saw him. In fact, she stared. Her children clung to her. One looked about 4 years old, the other maybe 6. Both were thin, hungry, eyes sunken, but they stayed quiet. Trained to be invisible, Jack lowered his weapon slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't move. She just spoke in a calm, broken voice. "I know. If you wanted to, we'd already be dead." Jack nodded, unsure what to say next. Then the woman did something strange. She stood up, weakly, slowly, but with pride. She stepped forward, keeping her children behind her. "My name is Alira," she said. "I was a wife. I am now nothing." Jack blinked, confused. "What do you want?" She looked at him straight in the eyes. No fear, no shame, just desperation hidden behind strength. "Become my husband," she said. "Adopt my children. Give them a future." Jack took a step back. "What?" Alira held her head high, though her lips trembled. "I don't want pity, I don't want safety, I want a life for them, a name, a chance. If you marry me, your people will protect us. Your law will make my children yours, it's the only way." Jack looked down at the kids. They stared at him with wide, empty eyes. No hope, no dreams. Just survival. He couldn't speak. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why would you trust a human soldier?" Alira's voice broke, just a little. "Because my people won't take me back. Because the ones who killed my husband might come for me next. And because I've watched you. From the shadows. You didn't burn the crops. You buried our dead." Jack felt his jaw clench. He remembered that night. He had disobeyed orders to give proper graves to the fallen, human and alien. Alira's eyes softened. "That's when I knew. You have a heart. My daughters need that more than they need a weapon." Silence filled the night. Jack looked up, at the stars. Cold wind brushed his face. He never expected this. A battlefield turning into a marriage proposal. A woman asking him not for help, but for a bond, a duty. He looked at her again. Alira's face was strong but tired. She had fire in her eyes but ash on her skin. He didn't say yes, not yet. But he didn't say no either. "Come with me," he said at last. "There's food, shelter, safety. One night. We'll talk. More tomorrow." Alira lowered her head slightly in a respectful nod. "Thank you." The two children stayed close to her legs as she walked. They didn't look at Jack, but they followed. As they reached his outpost, Jack saw the look in the other soldiers' eyes, confused, judging. Some whispered. Others watched with disgust. But Jack kept walking. He brought them into his private quarters, gave the kids warm blankets. Alira sat quietly on the edge of the room, refusing to eat until her daughters were full. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He kept thinking of her voice, her eyes, that strange strength behind the sadness. Who was this woman? And why? Did he care? Her past was painted in blood. Jack woke up before sunrise. His eyes were heavy, but his mind was racing. The alien woman, Elira, was still sleeping, on the floor beside her two daughters. They looked peaceful now, wrapped in warm blankets, but Jack knew peace was an illusion in this place. He stood near the window, staring at the cold sky. What had he done? He didn't say yes to marriage, but by bringing them in, he had already made a choice. Soldiers don't bring strangers home, especially not alien widows with unknown pasts. A quiet voice behind him broke the silence. "You're awake." Jack turned. Elira was sitting up, her silver hair falling over her shoulders. Her eyes were sharp. She never slept deeply. "You didn't run," Jack said. Elira raised an eyebrow. "Should I have?" He shrugged. Would have made sense. Most people don't ask for marriage after being hunted by their own kind. She looked down for a moment. "Then I guess I'm not most people." Jack poured her a cup of hot water. They had no tea. War stole even the little things. Elira accepted it with both hands, grateful, but still proud. She never begged, never lowered her eyes, not even to him. "Who was your husband?" Jack asked, quietly. She looked up slowly. Her eyes darkened. "General Cale." Jack froze. Cale was a name written in blood across every human soldier's memory. Ruthless. A killer. He had led raids that wiped out entire human camps. "You were his." Yes, she whispered, "and I hated what he became." Jack didn't move. He was trained to kill aliens like Kyle, and yet here was Cale's widow, drinking water in his quarters. "Why did you marry him?" he asked. "I didn't choose Cale." "Not really. Our bond was arranged. Back then he was a warrior, not a monster. We were young, hopeful. But war turns men into shadows. I saw it happen to him." She paused. "I stayed for my daughters, but when he ordered the execution of civilians, I ran." Jack swallowed hard. This wasn't just a refugee. She was part of the enemy's legacy. "So you betrayed him," he said. She nodded. "Yes. I betrayed my husband, my tribe, and my command. I stole food. I burned maps. I freed prisoners. And I ran into the forest with my girls." "Why not? Go to your people?" She laughed bitterly. "Would you take back the wife of a traitor, of a war criminal?" Silence. She looked at him, eyes burning again. "I didn't come to you as a woman, I came as a mother." That hit Jack like a punch to the chest. A soft cough came from the blanket pile. One of the girls was waking up. The younger one, pale, quiet, the one who hadn't spoken at all. Elira gently walked over, kissed her forehead, and whispered something in their language. The girl smiled, then closed her eyes again. Jack watched, heart tightening. This woman had slept in dirt, had fought her own kind, had starved, and yet, she still had gentleness left inside her. "She doesn't speak," Elira said, not turning around. "Not since she saw her father die." Jack stepped forward. "Did she see you kill him?" Elira shook her head. "No. I didn't kill Cale, but I didn't save him either." She turned slowly, her face heavy with memory. He was going to shoot a human child, a girl, maybe 10. The girl was screaming, covered in her mother's blood. Cale said mercy was weakness. I blocked his shot. He hit me. I told the girl to run. Jack held his breath. Kyle turned his gun on me next, but my daughter screamed. He hesitated. She paused. Then a sniper shot him, from your side. Jack didn't speak. There was nothing to say. Elira sat down slowly beside her daughters. He died believing I betrayed him. Maybe I did. She looked up at Jack again. So, you see, I am not asking you to marry a woman. I'm asking you to protect a graveyard. Jack knelt down across from her. I'm not a hero, he said. Elira smiled sadly. Neither am I. Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the smoke. A new day, a dangerous one. But inside that small, broken room, two enemies sat together, not as soldier and alien, not as widow and stranger, but as two people who had both lost too much. The child that wouldn't speak it had been 3 days since Elira and her children entered the human camp. Most soldiers avoided them. Some whispered. A few cursed under their breath. But none dared confront Jack directly. He was known, respected. And now, feared a little more. But Jack wasn't worried about the others. He was worried about the girl. The older daughter, Zari, spoke often, asking questions, repeating words in English, mimicking how Jack held his knife or checked his armor. But the younger one, Luno, hadn't spoken a single word, not even to her mother. She followed Elira like a silent shadow, ate only when told, slept with her eyes open, and she flinched every time she heard boots thumping on the metal floor. She hasn't said anything since the war? Jack asked one night. Elira didn't answer at first. She was braiding Zari's hair, gently but firmly, as the girl hummed something soft and sad. She saw things no child should see, Elira said finally. Worse, she remembers them. Jack nodded slowly. She's scared of us. No, Elira said. She's scared of everything. Later that night, Jack was in the storage shed fixing a broken drone. The place was quiet until he felt a small tug at his sleeve. He turned quickly, thinking it might be a soldier or even a threat. But it was her, Luno. She stood there in her oversized coat, sleeves hanging past her fingers. Her big, glowing eyes stared at him, silent, searching. Jack smiled gently and kneeled down. Hey, you okay? No answer. He held up a small tool. Want to help me fix this? She tilted her head, curious but still silent. He handed her a small screwdriver. Her hands trembled, but she took it. Carefully, she copied him, mimicking his every movement. They worked side by side, saying nothing, just listening to the soft clicks of metal and the quiet hum of the night. After a while, Jack looked at her and whispered, "You're good at this." She blinked, then nodded once. That was it. No words. But a start. The next day, Jack was called to the commander's tent. "You're protecting enemy civilians," the commander said coldly. "I'm protecting children," Jack replied. The commander threw a report on the table. "We've received a message. A bounty's been placed on the widow's head. Her own people want her dead." Jack's heart sank. "How much?" "High enough to tempt even our men." He clenched his fists. "She's under my care. I'll handle it." The commander narrowed his eyes. "You already are. But if one thing goes wrong, she's out, or worse." That evening, Jack returned to his quarters and found Luno sitting alone, staring at a cracked screen showing old Earth cartoons. No sound, just pictures. She watched, wide-eyed. Elira was in the corner, sharpening a knife. She looked up as Jack entered. "There's a bounty on your head," he said. She nodded slowly. "I assumed. Kale's brother is still alive. He wants my blood to clean the family name. You need to leave." "I can't," she said. "I have no safe place, no people, only you." Jack paced the room. His mind was a storm. Then he noticed something. Luno. She was moving her lips, silently, carefully. She was repeating words from the cartoon. Jack walked over and knelt beside her. "What are you saying?" She looked up at him, startled, caught. He smiled. "It's okay. Try again." She hesitated. Then, soft, like wind brushing through a broken window, she whispered one word. "Hero." Jack felt a lump in his throat. It wasn't perfect. Her voice cracked. But it was there. "Hero," she said again, this time louder, clearer. Elira dropped the knife in shock. Her eyes filled with tears. Luno pointed at Jack, then touched her heart. "Hero." That night, no one spoke much. There was no celebration, no grand moment. Just silence. And in that silence, hope was born again. A little girl who hadn't spoken since death took her father, had just called a human soldier her hero. The widow's secret. That night, the wind outside howled like it remembered war. Inside Jack's quarters, there, was calm but only on the surface. Elira sat near the corner, sharpening a blade with slow practice strokes. Jack watched her from across the room, pretending to read a report, but his eyes kept drifting. She was quiet, too quiet. Her movements were careful, not from fear, but from habit. Her hands knew the rhythm of battle. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Jack finally spoke. "Where'd you learn to handle a blade like that?" Elira paused. She didn't look up. "My mother was a hunter," she said. "My father was a priest. They taught me how to pray and how to survive." Jack nodded. "That's a strange combination." She smirked. "So is a soldier who buries his enemies with honor." A moment passed. Then Jack leaned forward. "There's something you're still not telling me." Elira's hand froze over the blade. He continued. "You weren't just Cale's wife. You were more than that. The way you move, the way you watch the exits every time we enter a room, you've trained for war." Elira looked up. Calm, cold, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. I was his shadow. Jack's blood chilled. "What does that mean?" "It means I wasn't just his wife. I was his protector, his second mind, his blade in the dark." She stood slowly, walked toward the window and looked out into the night. "I planned battles, interrogated prisoners, ran covert missions. Every success Cale claimed had my blood behind it." Jack felt a twist in his chest. "And how many people died because of you?" Elira didn't turn around. "Too many." Silence hung in the air like a noose. Then she whispered, "I buried every name, every scream, every child I didn't save." She turned back toward Jack. Her face was unreadable. "I don't want forgiveness," she said. "I want a second chance." Jack stared at her. "You think being with a human soldier will wipe that slate clean?" "No," she said simply. "But it might keep my daughters alive." Suddenly a knock came at the door. Jack opened it to find Corporal Dunn. Young, shaky, nervous. "Sir, there's something you should see." Jack followed him outside. The night was cold, the wind sharp. They stopped at the northern watch post. One of the patrol bots had been destroyed, cut clean in half, on the ground, drawn in ash and blood was a message in alien script. Jack called Elira over. She read it silently, then spoke. "Return the traitor, or we take the children." Zari and Luna were sleeping back in the room. Jack clenched his fists. "Do you know who sent this?" Elira nodded once. "I trained him. His name is Vark. My student. My shadow, now turned into my hunter." Jack's jaw tightened. "Why? Didn't you tell me this earlier?" "Because you wouldn't have kept me here," she said. He didn't argue, she was right. Back inside, Jack placed more guards outside his quarters. He didn't sleep. Instead, he sat near the window, rifle on his lap, watching the shadows for movement. Elira sat across from him, quiet again. After a long time, Jack asked, "If he comes, what will you do?" She looked at him. "Whatever it takes." Before dawn, Luna woke up crying. Not loud, but shaking, terrified. Jack rushed over. "What's wrong?" She pointed toward the window. "Eyes," she whispered. Jack ran outside. Nothing, but the ground near the storage shed had fresh footprints, smaller than a soldier's, heavier than a child's. They were being watched. As the first light of morning crept over the horizon, Jack looked at Elira and finally said it. "You were his weapon." Elira nodded. "But now," he added, "you're mine." For the first time since she arrived, she smiled, small and sad, but real. Then she said, "Then use me wisely, Jack. Because Vark won't stop." Love born in ashes, the morning came heavy with silence. No gunfire, no sirens, No orders, just wind brushing over steel roofs and the quiet breaths of two alien children sleeping safely. For now. Jack stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of protein mush. It smelled like nothing, tasted like less. But it was warm. Warm was enough. Elira entered quietly, her silver hair tied back, eyes alert even in peace. She had the grace of someone always ready to run or kill. But today, something was different, in her face. Softer, almost calm. Jack poured 2 cups of mush and handed her one. Best breakfast you'll ever regret, she smiled faintly. Reminds me of Kale's army rations. Worse or better? Same emptiness, but less bitterness. Jack chuckled. A small moment, but it felt big. They sat across from each other, eating slowly. The room was dim, lit only by a crack of dusty sunlight. After a while, Jack broke the silence. Did you ever love him? Elira didn't flinch at the question. Once. Before the war twisted us. Jack nodded. And now? She looked at him carefully. Now? I don't know what love is anymore. He leaned back in his chair. Maybe it's just surviving together. Keeping people safe. Showing up, even when you're scared. Elira's eyes softened. Then maybe I'm starting to remember. Later that day, Jack took Zari and Luno outside the base wall. Just a short walk to show them trees, light, something alive. Zari laughed as she chased a robotic beetle across the field. Jack smiled. But Luno stayed quiet, clinging to Elira's hand. She still doesn't trust this place, Jack said. She's not wrong to fear it, Elira replied. Then, something strange happened. Luno reached up and took Jack's hand too. Elira looked at them both. 3 hands, 2 species, 1 fragile moment of peace. That night the wind brought rain. Not heavy, but steady. It made the metal roof hum like a lullaby. Jack sat with Elira by the heater, a blanket around them. The children were asleep beside them. Never imagined this, Jack said. Neither did I, she whispered. Then she turned to him, her voice barely above the rain. When I asked you to be my husband, I meant it as survival, a shield for my girls. But now, she hesitated. Her lips trembled. Now I think I want it, not just for them, for me. Jack looked at her, really looked. Her skin still carried scars. Her hands were still calloused from war, but her eyes, they weren't just glowing anymore. They were open, vulnerable. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. I don't know what kind of man I am anymore, he said. But I know this. When I see you, I feel like I could be something better. Elira leaned in, slowly. Their foreheads touched. Not a kiss, just stillness. Connection. Like the world had stopped to let them feel something they hadn't felt in years. Safe. Then a loud bang shattered the peace. Glass cracked. A shot had been fired through the window. Jack grabbed his rifle. Elira shielded the children, who woke up crying. Jack barked into his comms. We've been breached. Sniper fire, east wall. The response crackled. We see them. 2 figures. Moving fast. 1 confirmed alien. Jack's blood turned cold. It's Vark. He turned to Elira. Get the girls to the bunker. Stay low. But she didn't move. Her voice was steady. I trained him. You can't beat him alone. Jack looked at her. You said I was your husband now. She nodded. Then you're my wife. And we protect each other. Outside, thunder rumbled as the storm grew stronger. Jack stepped into the night, scanning the shadows, and beside him, blade in hand, fire in her heart, walked Elira. The price of protection. The rain fell harder now, washing blood from old metal and fresh fear. Jack stood in the mud outside the barracks, his rifle steady, eyes scanning the darkness. Beside him, Elira moved like a shadow, quiet, sharp, deadly. The storm hid the enemy, but she could feel him. She had trained Vark herself. She knew how he hunted. "He'll go for the weak spot," she whispered. Jack nodded. "Which one's that?" She glanced at him. "You." He smiled, just a little. "Fair enough." Back inside, Zari and Luno were hidden beneath the bunk, wrapped in blankets. Luno trembled, but Zari held her tightly. The room was locked, and 2 human guards stood at the door, but Elira had still whispered one thing before leaving them. "If I don't come back, you run, you hide, you survive." Out in the storm, a flash of light, then movement. Jack fired, quick and clean. "Nothing. Decoy," Elira said instantly. "He's behind us." Jack turned, but too late. Vark dropped from the roof like a ghost, his twin blades swinging fast. Jack blocked one, but the second slashed across his shoulder. He grunted, stumbled back. Elira lunged forward. She didn't scream. She didn't shout. She moved like wind, blade to blade. Sparks flew as steel clashed in the rain. "Still alive, Elira?" Vark sneered. "You should have stayed dead," she growled. "They fought like siblings, like predators, like mirrors. Every time he struck, she dodged. Every time she cut, he bled, but not enough. Jack tried to get a clean shot, but they moved too fast. Then, Vark shoved Elira into a wall. Hard. Her head cracked against metal. She dropped. Jack roared and charged. Vark turned to meet him, laughing. "The human dog wants to play?" Jack didn't answer. He tackled him full force. The 2 men hit the ground, wrestling in the mud. Jack's rifle was gone. Vark's blade was inches from his throat. "Tell me," Vark hissed, pressing down. "What did she promise you? Her body? Her loyalty?" Jack spat in his face. "She promised me peace." Then a sharp sound, shink, and Vark froze. He looked down. Elira's blade had pierced through his chest from behind. He coughed. "You were always soft," she whispered in his ear. "No, I just saved the softness for them." Vark fell forward, lifeless. The storm kept falling, but the war, at least this battle, was over. Jack lay back in the mud, breathing hard. Blood poured from his shoulder. Elira dropped to her knees beside him. "You're hurt." "You're worse," he said, pointing to her forehead. "I've had worse," she replied, but her hand trembled. He reached up and touched her cheek. "You saved me." She shook her head. "No, we saved each other." Hours later, the base was sealed tight. Vark's body was burned. The guards doubled. The children were safe. But the damage was done. Jack stood before the commander again. "You brought danger into this camp," the commander growled. Jack didn't blink. "I also stopped it. She's a war criminal. She's a mother, a wife, a warrior who killed her own to save us." The commander leaned forward. "She cannot stay." Jack clenched his fists. "Then we leave." Silence. "You're serious?" the commander asked. Jack nodded. "We'll go off-grid, no trouble, no war, just gone." That night, Jack and Elira packed what little they had. Zari helped fold the blankets. Luno clutched Jack's hand the entire time. Before sunrise, they walked out the east gate. No words, just looks. Some soldiers watched. Some turned their backs. One saluted quietly. Jack didn't look back. In the mountains beyond the broken cities, they found a place. A ruined outpost, long forgotten. Nature had begun to take it back. That made it perfect. Jack built the fire. Elira cooked. The children laughed. And for once, no one was hunting them. Not humans. Not aliens. Not their pasts. That night, under a sky full of stars, Jack held Elira close and whispered, "I don't know what kind of future we're walking into." She smiled and placed her hand over his heart. "Then let's walk into it together. One family against the galaxy." The stars above looked peaceful, but Jack knew better. Peace was a thin blanket over a bed of knives. A month had passed since they left the camp. No soldiers, no orders, no walls. Just silence, snow-dusted peaks, and the sound of a family healing. Zari was learning to read English. She sat by the window every morning, sounding out letters from Jack's old mission logs. Luno laughed now, quiet, like she was still checking if laughter was allowed. She had started calling Jack something new. Baba. The first time she said it, Jack almost cried. Elira, though. Elira still moved like a warrior. Her body was here, but her eyes always searched the horizon, watching, waiting. She hadn't let her guard down fully. Not yet. One evening, while the fire crackled low, Jack sat beside her, sharpening a tool. The girls were asleep under a warm pile of blankets. "You're still expecting them to come," he said. Elira nodded. The galaxy has long memory, and longer grudges. Jack set down the tool. "I didn't bring you out here to live scared." She met his gaze. "You didn't bring me here. We chose this. Together." Jack smiled. That was true. Still, something in her tone felt heavy, like she knew a truth she hadn't shared yet. 2 nights later, the warning lights on Jack's old gear started flashing. A ship. Inbound. Not a merchant, not a beacon, military signature. They had been found. They didn't run. There was nowhere left to run. Instead, they prepared. Jack checked his weapons. Elira reinforced the doors. The girls were told to stay inside no matter what. As the ship descended in the distance, its lights cutting through the dusk, Jack stood with Elira on the roof of the old outpost. "You know who this is?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "The last of Kale's bloodline. His cousin, Commander Drav." Jack raised an eyebrow. "He here for revenge?" "No," she whispered. "He's here for my daughters." When the soldiers arrived, they didn't come with guns blazing. They came like wolves in nice coats, calm, organized, smiling the way men do when they believe they've already won. Commander Drav stepped forward. Elira stiffened. Jack felt the tension pour off her like fire. "Lady Elira," Drav said politely, "the council demands your daughters." "They're not yours to demand," she replied cold. "They carry the blood of Kale," he said. "His legacy. They belong to our people." "No," Jack growled, stepping forward. "They belong to their future, not your war." Drav's smile faded. "You're a guest in our galaxy, human. Don't pretend to understand our ways." "I don't need to understand," Jack said. "I just need to protect my family." The soldiers raised their rifles. Jack raised his. Then, Zari's voice rang out from inside the house. "Don't hurt my Baba." Jack froze. So did Elira. Zari ran out, followed by Luno, tears streaming down her face. She stood in front of Jack, fists clenched, eyes blazing with courage far bigger than her body. "Leave us alone," she shouted. "We have a home now." Drav's face twisted. "You let them speak in human tongue? You raise them as earthlings?" "They're being raised as children," Jack said. "Not weapons." Drav stepped forward. "Then you give us no choice." Before the order could leave his mouth, Elira moved. She stepped in front of her daughters, blade drawn, shoulders squared. "You want them," she said, voice like ice. "Then bury me first." Drav's soldiers hesitated. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a line in the sand. A mother, a father, 2 little girls, a bond stronger than species, stronger than bloodlines. Drav looked around. His soldiers didn't move. One of them lowered his weapon, then another. Jack saw it in their eyes. They didn't want to kill a family either. Drav cursed and turned away. "This isn't over." Elira stepped forward. "Yes, it is. We're not ghosts of your war anymore. We're something new." Drav boarded the ship. Minutes later, it vanished into the sky. The family stood in silence. The snow began to fall. Zari hugged Jack's leg. Luno wrapped her arms around Elira's waist. Jack whispered, "You were ready to die." Elira smiled. "I was ready to live." 1 month later, Their home was still the same, old, quiet, warm. But something had changed. The world had heard the message. Enemies became quiet. Strangers became distant. But the galaxy began to watch. Not with hatred, but with curiosity. A warrior woman, a human soldier. Two children caught in between, a story no empire could rewrite, and somewhere deep in the stars a legend was born. They called it the family that ended a war without firing a shot. But for Jack and Elira, it was just home.